Hello, everyone. My name is Keisha. I use she, her pronouns, and I am from the Lexington district.
Hello, my name is Gianna. I use she, her pronouns, and I am from the Lexington district.
Hi, I'm Christine. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from the Foxborough district.
Hi, my name is AJ. I use he, him pronouns, and I am from the Bedford district.
We are going to be addressing several issues that affect our schools and communities. We chose to talk about these issues because of the negative experience that many METCO students go through are unacceptable and should be talked about. It is important to get this message across to everyone so we can be one step closer to allowing METCO students to feel more welcome in their schools and communities. Next, AJ will bring us more in depth with 3 of the biggest problems we face as a community.
3 big topics that we will be talking about are microaggressions, redlining, and code switching. Through this presentation, we will walk you through what each of these topics mean and the effect that they have on people. We also will be sharing some experiences that people have had with these kind of issues.
Microaggressions are comments or actions that are subtle and often unintentionally express a prejudiced attitude toward a member of a marginalized group. Examples can be, where are you from? Where were you born? You speak good English. I believe most qualified persons should get the job. Everyone can succeed in this society if they work hard enough.
Though microaggressions seem straightforward, there are 3 different ways that someone could be affected by them: micro assaults, micro insults, and micro invalidation.
A microassault is a verbal or nonverbal attack meant to hurt the intended victim through name-calling, avoidant behavior, or purposefully discriminatory actions.
In a college class, a Muslim student sits in a class where a professor makes Islamophobic comments during a lecture, or when an Asian woman is being followed by a harasser for blocks and blocks around the neighborhood.
Micro insults are communications that convey rudeness or insensitivity and demean a person's racial heritage or identity. Micro insults represent subtle snubs frequently unknown to the perpetrator but convey an insulting hidden message to the recipient of color.
This could be like if a Black male college student at a highly selective university is asked what sport he plays, with the assumption that he did not gain admission based on his academic credentials, but rather his athletic ability.
This could also be a Latina administrator described as spicy, which culturally objectifies her while also diminishing her effectiveness as a leader.
And if a fellow student at a school comes up to a Latino student and asks, "What are you?" The Latina student replies, "I am Mexican." The student replies, "You're Mexican, but you seem so educated and American."
Next, we will talk about micro-invalidation. Micro-invalidation is communications that exclude, negate, or nullify the psychological thoughts, feelings, or experiential reality of a person of color.
This is like an Asian American professor is asked where she is from, and she replies Kansas. Her students reply, "No, seriously, what country are you from?" suggesting she's not born in the United States.
A Black woman is in a boardroom and is making comments to be involved in a conversation, but her comments go unheard.
Another example is when a Muslim man shares an idea to his coworker and asks him if it's good enough to tell the boss. His white coworker says, "Yeah, you should tell him." Later that day, he overhears his coworker telling the boss the idea he came up with.
It's easier to see when a microaggression is happening than to explain it verbally. It's easier to understand the issue if we show it to you. And this video will offer a different way of looking at microaggressions and how they affect people.
For people who still don't think that microaggressions are a problem,
Oh, you're so well spoken.
just imagine, instead of being a stupid comment, a microaggression is a mosquito bite.
Ugh, it's a compliment.
Mosquito bites and their itch are one of nature's most annoying features. But if you're only bitten every once in a while,
No, where are you really from?
Cleveland?
sure, it's annoying, but it's not that big a deal. The problem is that some people get bitten by mosquitoes a lot more than other people. I mean, a lot more. Whether it's on a date,
Oh, your English is so good.
Excuse me?
going grocery shopping,
You know, everything happens for a reason.
I'm just buying apples.
commuting to work,
So when are you gonna have a baby?
watching TV,
We have to keep the Redskins' name. It's part of our culture and history.
or just walking down the street with your partner.
I couldn't even tell you were gay.
Mosquitoes seem to pop up everywhere.
Do you know John? Give me shopping advice. I love Cher too.
And getting bit by mosquitoes every day,
Can I touch your hair?
multiple times a day,
So pretty. Can
Can I touch it,
hair,
please? I want to Can I please?
is annoying and makes you want to go ballistic on those mosquitoes, which seems like a huge overreaction to people who only get bit every once in a while.
It's just a mosquito bite. Who cares?
Just another angry black woman.
Of course, beyond just being annoying, some mosquitoes carry truly threatening diseases that can mess up your life for years.
Astrophysics? Maybe you should try this challenging major.
Ow, my dreams.
And other mosquitoes carry strains that can even kill you.
He looked like he was up to trouble, okay? I felt threatened.
So next time you think someone's overreacting, just remember, some people experience mosquito bites all the time.
You're all so exotic. Wow.
And by mosquito bites, we mean microaggressions. For people who still don't think that
We interviewed some high school students and alumni about microaggressions they experienced while in school. They each tell a story of the experience and the effect it had on them. One student said, "Whenever I did something, people would say, oh, the medical kids did this, the medical kids did that. A lot of people would say we were aggressive, and teachers would comment how I should smile more because I looked neat. Some students would say, I wouldn't mess with her, she's so aggressive, she could beat me up. Teachers have also looked for ways to label us emotionally immature and use that as a way to keep us held back a grade."
Another high school student said, in 8th grade history, I had homework done while a friend of mine didn't. We both lied to the teacher, and when the teacher found out I came clean, he said he didn't care. And still blamed me for copying the homework. I could feel the racial tension and just decided not to do anything drastic about it. I told my mom and the METCO director to try to tell them the truth, but he still didn't believe me.
One more student said, I've been in METCO since 3rd grade and have been involved in multiple microaggressions with school authorities. One microaggression that I will always remember is in 4th grade when I was giving my teacher my permission slip and money for a field trip. And there was this kid's bag next to mine, and he lost his money. So the teacher thought I stole it. So she sent me to the office, and I was pretty much interrogated for hours until I admitted I did it, even though I didn't, because I was scared and wanted to go home and ended up getting suspended. Moving on to redlining. Redlining is a discriminatory practice that puts services, financial and otherwise, out of reach for residents of certain areas based on race or ethnicity. An example is when an internet service provider decides not to service specific geographic areas because they are seen to not be as profitable.
Redlining is a serious issue that we need to discuss. In this video, it explains and goes more into depth of what redlining is and the effects it has on a community.
We came to Levittown and we found the model house, and we walked in and we looked around, and of course, in the eyes of a young man who was raised in the ghetto, so to speak, it was an interesting experience, interesting lifestyle, seeing all the new modern conveniences, very fascinating.
Eugene Burnett came home with almost 1 million other black GIs. They had fought for the country in segregated ranks. They returned hoping for equality and the American dream. For many, that dream was a new home for little money down and some of the easiest credit terms in history.
I went up to the salesman. We're interested in your home. We're interested in buying one. And what is the procedure? Is there an application to be filled out? So forth. So he looked at me, looked around, and he said to me, he says, listen, it's not me, but the owners of this development have not as yet decided to sell these homes to Negroes.
It was as though it wasn't real. You can't imagine. But for someone to come out and actually tell you that they can't sell to you, you know, I was really on an up. Man, look at this house. Can you imagine having this? And then for them to tell me because of the color of my skin, I can't be a part of it.
The FHA underwriters warned that the presence of even one or two non-white families could undermine real estate values in the new suburbs. These government guidelines were widely adopted by private industry. Race had long played a role in local real estate practices. Starting in the 1930s, government officials institutionalized the national appraisal system, where race was as much a factor in real estate assessment as the condition of the property. Using this scheme, federal investigators evaluated 239 cities across the country for financial risk.
So that those communities that were all white, suburban, and far away from minority areas, they received the highest rating, and that was the color green. Those communities that were all minority or in the process of changing, they got the lowest rating, and the color red. They were redlined. As a consequence, most of the mortgages went to suburbanizing America, and it suburbanized it racially.
The racial logic adopts the principle that an integrated neighborhood is a bad risk, is a financial risk, that an integrated neighborhood is likely to be an unstable neighborhood, unstable socially, but therefore also unstable economically.
When the white residents of 8 Mile Road in Detroit were told they were too close to a black neighborhood to qualify for a positive FHA rating, they built this 6-foot wall between themselves and their black neighbors. Once the wall went up, mortgages on the white properties were approved. Between 1934 and 1962, the federal government underwrote $120 billion in new housing. Less than 2% went to non-whites.
I can understand an individual, depending on his environment or his family or whatever, being racist, but for your country to sanction it, give him tools to do that, there's something deadly wrong there.
Redlining has caused some major effects on communities all over the U.S. It has created a huge gap in schools, businesses, and housing. This gap was caused by buildup of suppressed groups and growth.
"74% of the neighborhoods that were redlined in the 1930s have become low to moderate income neighborhoods, and 64% are majority minorities."
This practice led to a lower rate of appreciation for real estate in redline neighborhoods, causing an increased wealth gap between Black and white families. Over 40 years, a typical homeowner in a previously redlined neighborhood has 52% less in a property value increase than a homeowner in a neighborhood that was not.
Now we will talk about code switching. Code switching is the switching from the linguistic system from one language or dialect to that of another. It's the product of the social context or conversational setting. An example is when you talk or speak differently around your white friends or your Black friends. Like microaggressions, code switching is easier to understand if shown than explained. In this video, Between the Lines, Huffington explains code switching and why exactly it's done.
We all code switch, but some examples are more effective than others.
Okay, let's be real honest. Obama would not be president if he didn't know how to effectively code switch.
Obama out.
He's really adept at reading his audience.
Wagwan, Jamaica.
And then putting forth an American English that they can relate to.
So what is code switching?
Okay, so code switching, let's keep it really simple. Code, so we can think language, and switching, so going back and forth between one language and another, or one dialect and another.
Meet Professor Renee Blake.
I am an associate professor in the Department of Linguistics at New York University. I'm also in the Department of Social and Cultural Analysis and the Director of Africana Studies.
Say that 3 times fast.
Oh, you're funny. Code switching is the norm for all of us. So if you just think about whether it's a formal situation versus an informal situation, we're going to be code switching. Usually people think of it in terms of language. So here I am speaking, and I'm speaking not only with words, but I'm also speaking with my face, I'm speaking with my hands.
But code switching often has higher stakes for Black people.
I think it's clear why Black people specifically feel the need to code switch.
This is Taryn Finley. She's the editor of HuffPost Black Voices.
Our Blackness isn't accepted in a lot of spaces that are critical for our success and our survival. A lot of times we have to dilute and we have to put on a mask.
It's a bigger leap for someone who speaks African American English versus someone who speaks a language that is closer to mainstream English, the language of those in power.
But when a Black person can't effectively code switch, the result can be catastrophic. The 2013 George Zimmerman trial was a painful reminder of that fact. He was charged with second-degree murder in the shooting of Trayvon Martin. Rachel Gentile was the prosecution's star witness and a close friend of Martin's.
And when she testified, she was not code switching.
I asked him how the man looked like. He looked like a creepy ass cracker.
She took the stand, and it became clear that the public wasn't judging the facts of her story. They were judging her language.
I don't think she came across as brutally honest. I think she comes across as brutally ignorant. Every time she opens her mouth, her credibility gets chipped away and chipped away.
Ultimately, Zimmerman walked free. But the ability to code switch isn't always enough to avoid disaster. Case in point, Sandra Bland. Bland was stopped for failing to signal a lane change.
Oh, you seem very irritated.
I am. I really am. She's speaking a form of standard or mainstream English.
Step out of the car.
But yet, the conversation escalates and goes badly very quickly.
Get out of the car!
And then
I will light you up. Get out!
Wow.
Now!
Wow.
Get out of the car!
For a failure to signal. You're doing all of this for
Get over there.
And so here what I think is happening, and what we seem to understand, is that there's something about the Black expression that is different or can be misconstrued.
Despite her ability to code switch, Bland was arrested. She was later found dead in her jail cell.
Our Blackness inherently says trouble in a lot of white spaces and a lot of public spaces. That's why so many people feel threatened and want to call the cops when they see a Black person doing something as benign as waiting for a business meeting to start in Starbucks.
So it sounds like racism is the root cause of all of this.
We haven't, as a country, confronted racism and really got into the roots of why we code switch, why we feel like we have to straighten our hair in order to get a job, even if we don't want to.
That concerns me, because I think the Black body is like every other body, a beautiful body, and should be loved and respected, and not feel anxiety as you walk through the world on a daily basis. I know I feel that anxiety because I do want to be accepted by the world in which I live.
Code switching can help Black people navigate white spaces. But at the end of the day, it's not enough to overcome racism.
Code switching and respectability politics don't protect us all the time. We're still Black.
Code switching has unfortunately become a social norm for people in the Black community. Here we have quotes from high school students and METCO alumni expressing their feelings about code switching and reasoning behind it. One of the students shared, "I feel like I have to be more proper around white people or else I'll get judged by them for the way I sound. I also do that over the phone. I want to come across as nice, and I know that talking like a white person makes people on the phone talk to me nicer in a sense."
And METCO alumni shared, "I code switched to survive and achieve in the METCO program. I learned how to code switch in the 7th grade because I was bullied in the 6th grade and wasn't accepted by the METCO students or the white students in the school. So code switching was a way to survive in school for me."
This high school student shared, "When I go to school, I already feel like the odd one out. So I can't speak how I do regularly, or I will definitely be judged. So I know when I'm not at home, I have to speak correct, proper, and quieter to fit in with the kids and groups I'm involved in at school." Addressing some of these challenges can make all the difference in a child's educational career. When you educate yourself, you can make a space for POCs to feel welcomed without having to sacrifice their comfort for an equal education. When incidents involving microaggressions happen and nothing is done, some students feel too discouraged to come to school and feel like they aren't worth the effort of someone else to speak up.
Why does this continue? A lot of our attitudes are shaped when we're young. When our family members and friends express racist opinions, it's common that we will take on those values ourselves. It's the lack of education and empathy that people have that allows these things to continue.
Because these issues are so embedded into our society, the best we can do for now is start the conversations that need to be had. Schools and councils making these issues aware of them.
Teach these topics to students and teachers, getting the information out there and educating people about these issues.
We can do this by having school meetings and trainings for teachers and be more strict when it comes to hate crimes happening in schools / racist actions / comments.
The goal of these meetings and training is to make it so that students and teachers have a better understanding of what people of color go through to really make all the difference.
We need to tell people empowered ways and to change or deal with the microaggressions and racism such as power. Having schools meetings for all grades and ages to make the problems more widespread throughout the school with teachers and students and stop it from continuing earlier. Stricter rules on racism and microaggression that all will be acted upon in a way that tries to ensure that it won't happen again. We can fully discuss these issues to have a good understanding of the situation before doing anything drastic so that no one gets an undeserving punishment. We thank you so much for listening to our presentation and are so excited to see the new change.